In this presentation, we're going to think about the term sustainability as it applies to communities. And we're going to start by thinking about sustainability, which is a guiding principle that I like to use when I teach this and several other courses that I offer, because I think it offers a nice way to think about development and planning. And a lot of the classes I teach, that's their focus. Sustainability offers a framework that is balanced. So it considers all aspects of life. It's a holistic, broad framework, and it's not narrowly focused, as many approaches to development tend to be. So if we look at the traditional conceptualization of sustainability, we see the three circles here in the Venn diagram of the economy, society, and the environment, and in the middle, where everything is balanced, is sustainability. And another way of thinking of that in the most balanced sense is the nested circles, right, where we have the economy nested within society, and society nested within the environment, right? Another way to think about those three things is offered by Edwards, who calls it the three E's, and he refers to the economy, but instead of society, he uses equity. And I do see a relationship there, as equity really is quite similar to the idea of social justice in society. And the environment. These three things need to be kept in balance if we're going to have sustainability. And then he suggests that there's a fourth E, and that has to do with education. And that's an important factor when it comes to teaching people about sustainability, right? Another aspect of sustainability is the time frame. A lot of development and planning is done at a very short-term scale. For instance, economically driven development is often too focused on short-term profit without thinking of the long-term outcomes. And that's not the case when we use a sustainable framework. In the Brundtland Report, which goes back to the Rio de Janeiro United Nations Environmental Conference. And this quote is taken from the report there. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Right, so that's an important aspect of sustainability, is the long-term view. The term community, as we'll see in another presentation, has a lot of different meanings. But one thing I do like to point out, thinking of the three nested circles, is that community is not just people. It's the environment, it's wildlife, it's all the interconnections in between. And there are some critical challenges for sustainable communities, and we'll look at three main trends. The first of those is urbanization. The global human population has been on pretty much a straight pathway towards being more urban. Around 2010, the global population became 51% urban. It was sometime between 2008 and 2010. And they predict by 2050 about 70% of the world will be urban. So that's going to continue on. And the thing about urbanization is it's often misunderstood as something that's maybe green or good for the environment. The reality is cities tend to be places that funnel resources from a wide hinterland and then return to that hinterland a lot of byproduct and waste. So this is an exploitative relationship that urban areas tend to have with the rural. And culturally, there's what we call an urban normative culture. And some of the research I've done that justifies that exploitation. Related to that is globalization. As humans become more urban, they also become more attuned to the global scale because resources that are available locally are not adequate to serve urban populations, and that spurns global trade. And now we have an economy that's stretched out over great distances and circles the entire planet. We have an ideology of neoliberalism and free trade that undermines efforts to address social problems. We have people in human populations that are moving over greater distances, and that fluctuates though as the movement between countries becomes hindered by certain policies. We have political conflicts and tension rising. It's pretty related to that previous comment. And we have social justice challenges all around. And finally, the third trend that's challenging global sustainability is industrialization. And to a large degree, many communities are driven by economic growth strategies. In fact, I would argue that's the dominant paradigm for planning and development. And many times that's solely focused on attracting large industry through what we will call a growth machine ideology. And unfortunately, when you privilege economic goals over environmental and social goals, a number of problems can result. And narrow development goals in general tend to create environmental and social justice challenges. And that will conclude our brief presentation thinking about sustainability and communities.